The morning after my husband's funeral, I found a key taped beneath his desk. Beside it was a note written in his handwriting. If I am dead,
Rachel knows what happened. Do not trust her. And whatever you do not let her sell the house. Rachel was my younger sister. She had stood beside me at the funeral. She had held my hand while my husband's coffin disappeared into the ground. She had even offered to stay with me because she said I should not be alone. At that moment, she was sleeping in my guest room, 20 feet away. I stood frozen inside Daniel's office, holding the small brass key between my fingers. 3 days earlier, the police had told me his death was an accident. His car had left a wet mountain road outside Asheville, North Carolina. There were no witnesses, no other vehicles, and no reason to suspect a crime. But Daniel's note changed everything. I folded it, slipped it into the pocket of my robe, and quietly returned the desk drawer to its original position. Then I heard a floorboard creak behind me. Rachel stood in the doorway wearing one of my robes. She was 30, 5 years younger than me, with the same brown eyes as our mother. Usually, those eyes made me think of home. That morning, they made me afraid. "What are you doing in here?" she asked. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were fixed on my closed hand. "I could not sleep," I said. "I thought I might find Daniel's insurance papers." She entered the room slowly. "You should not worry about paperwork right now. Let me handle it." That was when I remembered Daniel's final warning. Do not let her sell the house. "Why would you handle my husband's paperwork?" I asked. Rachel smiled, but the smile did not reach her eyes. "Because you are grieving. And because Daniel asked me to help if anything happened to him." And my heart began beating faster. Daniel had never trusted Rachel with money. He barely trusted her enough to borrow his car. Before I could answer, she glanced toward the desk. "Did you find anything?" "No." The lie came more easily than I expected. She watched me for several long seconds. Then she nodded and walked away. I waited until her bedroom door closed. After that, I locked myself in the bathroom and examined the key. A number was stamped into the metal. 317. It looked like a safe deposit key. By 8 that morning, Rachel was already making breakfast, as if she owned my kitchen. She told me I needed rest. She offered to call Daniel's attorney. Then she casually mentioned that maintaining the house alone would be expensive. "You should consider selling," she said. The spoon slipped from my fingers and struck the table. Daniel had predicted those exact words. Rachel immediately noticed my reaction. "I am only thinking about your future," she added. I forced a weak smile. "Maybe you are right." For the next 2 hours, I pretended to agree with everything she said. Then I told her I needed fresh air and drove into town. The key belonged to a private storage company called Blue Ridge Vaults. Locker 317 had been rented in Daniel's name, but I was listed as the emergency beneficiary. Inside it, I found no money, jewelry, or legal documents. I found a phone. It was an old prepaid phone wrapped inside a plastic bag. Its battery was nearly dead, but when I turned it on, there was one saved video. Daniel appeared on the screen. He looked tired and frightened. "If you are watching this, I failed to stop them," he said. "Your sister is not working alone. Rachel and my business partner, Victor Hale, have been stealing from the company for 2 years. I discovered the missing money last month." My hands began to shake. Then Daniel said something that changed my grief into rage. "Rachel is planning to make my death look like an accident. She thinks I changed my life, insurance beneficiary to her. I let her believe it because I needed time to collect evidence." The video ended with Daniel looking directly into the camera. "I am sorry I kept this from you. I was trying to protect you. But if they come for the house, let them. Everything you need is hidden inside it. I drove home with the phone concealed inside my coat. Rachel's car was gone. The front door was unlocked. When I entered Daniel's office, every drawer had been pulled open. The note was no longer in my pocket. Someone had taken it while I was at the storage vault. Then my phone rang. Rachel's name appeared on the screen. I answered without speaking. "You should not have opened locker 317, she said. The sweet voice she had used all morning was gone. For the first time, I heard my sister's real voice. "Where are you?" I asked. "Close enough to know you are standing in Daniel's office." I looked toward the windows. Across the road, a dark sport utility vehicle sat beneath the trees. Its engine was running. "What do you want?" "The phone. Put it on the kitchen table and leave the house for 1 hour. If you call the police, I will tell them you killed Daniel for the insurance money. They will never believe you." Rachel laughed softly. "They already believe his death was an accident. People believe whatever comes with clean paperwork." The call ended. I stared at the vehicle across the road. Then I looked at the phone in my hand. Rachel thought she had started hunting me. She did not understand that I had just decided to hunt her back. Pert T. Oh, sauf, C-cross, I did not leave Daniel's phone on the kitchen table. I copied the video onto 2 memory cards. I hid one inside an old flour container and slipped the other beneath the lining of my purse. Then I placed the phone on the table exactly as Rachel had ordered. Before leaving, I opened the voice recorder on my own phone and tucked it into my coat pocket. I drove to a coffee shop 3 miles away and parked where I could see the road. 15 minutes later, the dark vehicle passed me heading toward my house. Victor Hale was driving. Rachel sat beside him. Seeing them together hurt more than I expected. Rachel and I had not always been enemies. After our father disappeared when we were children, I had practically raised her. I packed her lunches, helped with her homework, and worked evenings so she could attend college. When our mother died, I used part of my inheritance to pay Rachel's debts. Daniel once told me that love without limits becomes permission. I had accused him of being cruel. Now I understood what he meant. I waited an hour before returning. The phone was gone, but nothing else appeared disturbed. Rachel called a few minutes later using her gentle voice again. "I am sorry about what I said. Grief is making all of us behave strangely." "Did you take Daniel's phone?" I asked. There was a pause. "What phone?" I smiled even though she could not see me. She had just given me my first useful lie. "Never mind," I said. "You were right about the house. I cannot stay here." Her breathing changed. "Are you ready to sell?" "I think so." She immediately offered to contact an investor who could buy it quickly. The speed of her answer confirmed that she and Victor had planned everything before Daniel died. That afternoon, I visited Daniel's attorney, Susan Bell. I did not mention the video. I asked only about his will and life insurance. Susan looked uncomfortable. "Daniel changed several documents. 2 weeks before his death," she said. "He placed the house in a family trust and made you the sole beneficiary. The life insurance policy also names you." Did Rachel know? Daniel asked me not to discuss it with anyone. Susan handed me a sealed envelope. Daniel had instructed her to give it to me only if I asked about selling the house. Inside was a hand-drawn floor plan. A red circle marked the wall behind the fireplace in our living room. Beneath it, Daniel had written 3 words. "Start with the brick." I waited until midnight before searching. One brick on the right side of the fireplace was slightly darker than the others. I pulled it free and found a small metal box. Inside were bank statements, printed emails, and photographs of Rachel meeting Victor at motels and restaurants. There was also a digital recorder. The first recording captured Victor and Rachel discussing money stolen from Daniel's construction company. The second captured them arguing about Daniel. Victor said they had to frighten him into silence. Rachel said frightening him would not be enough. Then I heard my sister say, "The mountain road solves everything. One cut brake line, one rainy night, and one grieving widow." My knees gave way. I sat on the floor and pressed both hands over my mouth to stop myself from screaming. Daniel had known they were planning his death. Why had he driven that road? Why had he not gone to the police? The final file answered part of that question. Daniel had recorded himself. He said Victor's cousin worked in the county sheriff's evidence department. He believed files were being removed before detectives could see them. Daniel planned to take the evidence directly to federal investigators on Monday morning. He died Sunday night. I copied every file. At 2 a.m, I called Detective Marcus Reed, the officer who had first spoken to me after the crash. I asked him to meet me at a diner outside his jurisdiction. I did not trust the sheriff's office, but Daniel's notes mentioned Marcus by name and described him as honest. Marcus arrived alone. He listened to the recordings without interrupting. When they finished, he leaned back and looked troubled. "This proves a conspiracy," he said. "But it does not prove who damaged the car. Can you reopen the case?" "I can ask. But if there is corruption inside the department, asking too loudly could warn the wrong person." He advised me to leave the house and stay somewhere safe. I refused. Daniel said the rest of the evidence is there. Marcus stared at me. "Then they will come back for it." "I know." I did not tell him that I wanted them to come back. Rachel was confident because she believed I was weak. If I ran, she would destroy whatever Daniel had hidden. If I stayed and pretended to cooperate, she might lead me to it. The next morning, Rachel arrived with a real estate agent named Paul Grayson. Paul carried a contract that valued my house at less than half its market price. The buyer was a company called Mountain Renewal Holdings. I recognized the address. It was the same address printed on one of Victor's fraudulent invoices. Rachel expected me to sign immediately. Instead, I asked for 48 hours. Her pleasant expression vanished for one quick second. "The offer expires tonight," Paul said. "Then the buyer can wait," I replied. Rachel followed me into the hallway. "Do not make this difficult," she whispered. "Or what?" As she stepped closer, Daniel made it difficult. Look where it got him. My phone was recording inside my pocket. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to tell her I had heard everything. Instead, I lowered my eyes and pretended to break. "Fine," I whispered. "I will sign tonight." Rachel touched my shoulder as if comforting me. That was when I noticed a thin silver chain around her neck. Hanging from it was Daniel's wedding ring. Part 3 dials. I nearly lost control when I saw Daniel's ring against Rachel's skin. "Where did you get that?" I asked. Her fingers closed around it. "The funeral director gave it to me by mistake." "Why did you not return it?" "I was going to." Another lie. The funeral director had told me Daniel was not wearing his ring when his body arrived. Rachel left with Paul, promising to return at 7 with the final contract. As soon as their car disappeared, I called Marcus. He listened to the recording of Rachel's threat. "It helps," he said. "Do not sign anything. I need to know why they want the house. Rachel may kill you for it. Then make sure she cannot." There was a long silence. Marcus agreed to place 2 federal agents in an unmarked van nearby. They were investigating Victor's financial crimes and the possible corruption inside the sheriff's office. But they could not enter unless they witnessed a crime or I gave a clear emergency signal. I spent the afternoon studying Daniel's floor plan. The red circle near the fireplace had led to the metal box, but faint pencil marks continued from the fireplace through the wall and down toward the basement. In the basement, I found a section of wooden paneling that sounded hollow. Behind it was a narrow passage built during Prohibition. Our house was almost 100 years old, and Daniel had discovered the passage while renovating it. At the end stood an old steel cabinet. It was empty except for a photograph of my father. My father had disappeared when Rachel was 9 and I was 14. Our mother always said he had abandoned us. In the photograph, he stood beside Victor's father, outside the same construction company Daniel later purchased. On the back, Daniel had written, "Your father did not leave." My grief suddenly opened into something much older. I searched the cabinet again and found a false bottom. Beneath it were newspaper clippings about an unidentified man, pulled from a river 29 years earlier. A handwritten police report listed a distinctive scar, matching one my father had carried across his left hand. The case had never been solved. There was also a letter from Daniel. He explained that while investigating Victor, he found payments made by Victor's father to a retired deputy. The dates matched my father's disappearance. Daniel believed my father had discovered that the Hale family was stealing from employees' retirement accounts. Before he could report it, he was killed. Rachel had learned the truth months before Daniel told me. Instead of seeking justice, she used it to blackmail Victor. That was how their partnership began. I sat in the dark passage, holding the photograph against my chest. Rachel had not only betrayed Daniel. She had sold the truth about our father to the son of the man who helped destroy him. My phone vibrated. A message from Rachel said she would arrive early. I photographed every document and returned the cabinet to its original condition. Then I placed the most important evidence in a bag and hid it inside my neighbor Ellen's garden shed. If the house burned, the truth would survive. At 6:30, Rachel arrived alone. "Where is Paul?" I asked, waiting for us at his office. "I thought we could have one last drink here." She carried a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. I remembered the toxicology report. Daniel had a strong sedative in his blood when he crashed. The police assumed he had taken one of my sleeping pills. I had always known that was impossible. Daniel hated medication. Rachel poured the wine while I pretended to read the contract. When she looked away, I switched our glasses. "To new beginnings," she said. "To the truth," I replied. Her smile tightened. We drank. Within 10 minutes, Rachel's words began to slow. She stared at her glass, then at mine. "What did you do?" she asked. I switched them. She stood too quickly and gripped the table. "You do not understand what you are involved in." "I understand that you drugged Daniel." Her face changed. For 1 second, I saw fear. Then it hardened into anger. "Daniel was going to destroy everything. Everything you stole. Everything I built." "You built nothing. You stole from a man who trusted you." Rachel laughed bitterly. "Daniel never trusted me. He looked at me like I was some broken thing you dragged into his life. He tried to help you. He tried to control me." She reached into her purse. I stepped back, expecting a weapon. Instead, she pulled out Daniel's ring. "He gave me this the night he died," she said. The words struck me harder than a slap. Rachel saw the pain on my face and smiled. "You did not know, did you? Daniel and I were together." For several seconds, I could not breathe. Then I remembered Daniel's video, his fear, his warning, his evidence. Rachel wanted to wound me because the drug was weakening her and she needed control. "You are lying," I said. "Ask Victor. He saw us." Before I could answer, the back door opened, Victor entered carrying a gun. "She will not be asking anyone," he said. Part 4. Teach Iral. Ariel. Victor locked the door behind him and pointed the gun at my chest. Rachel swayed beside the table. "You said you were coming later," she mumbled. Victor looked at her empty glass and understood immediately. "You drugged yourself." She switched them. He cursed and turned toward me. "Where are Daniel's files?" "I do not know." He raised the gun. Wrong answer. I needed him to speak. The agents outside could hear through the phone hidden beneath the table. But a threat alone might not be enough to connect him to Daniel's death. "Rachel told me you cut Daniel's brake line," I said. Rachel's eyes widened. "I never said that." Victor glanced at her. That glance told me they did not fully trust each other. "She also said you killed my father." I continued. "Your father was dead before I was old enough to drive." "But your father paid for it." Victor's jaw tightened. "Old history has nothing to do with this." "It has everything to do with this. Your family has been stealing from mine for 30 years. Rachel sank into a chair. The sedative was pulling her down, but panic kept her conscious. "Do not tell her anything," she said. Victor looked disgusted. "You already told her too much." "I handled Daniel. You were supposed to handle the evidence." There it was. A confession, but still incomplete. Victor stepped toward her. "You were supposed to sedate him, not climb into his car and fight with him." Rachel stared at him. I stared too. "You were in Daniel's car?" I asked. Rachel said nothing. Victor realized his mistake, but anger had made him careless. "Tell me what happened," I demanded. Rachel began to cry. I had seen those tears many times. They had rescued her from unpaid loans, broken promises, and every consequence she refused to face. But this time, they looked real. "I only wanted the files," she said. "I put the sedative in his coffee." Victor had already damaged the brakes. "I followed Daniel from the office and got into the car when he stopped at the gas station. I told him to pull over and give me the evidence. And when he refused, we fought. He lost control. You left him there. The car went over the edge. I could not reach him. You did not try." Rachel covered her face. Victor grabbed her shoulder. "Stop talking." She pulled away. "This is your fault. You said the brakes would force him to stop. The plan worked until you got into the car." Their partnership was breaking apart in front of me. Then Rachel said, "Tell her the truth about the ring." Victor's expression changed. "What truth?" I asked. Rachel looked at me through heavy eyes. "Daniel gave it to me because it contained a memory chip. He knew Victor searched his office. Daniel asked me to take the ring to you if anything happened." I felt the room tilt. "You were helping him. At first." The truth was worse than her lie. Daniel had trusted Rachel enough to make her part of his plan. She had carried evidence for him. But when Victor offered her half the stolen money and promised to erase her debts, she betrayed Daniel. She did not kill him because she hated him. She killed him because his trust had become valuable. "Where is the chip?" Victor asked. Rachel closed her hand around the ring. "Safe?" He struck her across the face. She fell from the chair. I moved toward her, but Victor pointed the gun at me again. "The ring," he ordered. Rachel laughed from the floor. "You will kill us both anyway." Victor did not deny it. I looked toward the front window. The agents were waiting for my emergency phrase. I only had to say it clearly. "Daniel always said the mountain gets cold after midnight," I said. Victor frowned. Outside, nothing moved. My phone was no longer beneath the table. Victor had noticed it and crushed it beneath his shoe when he entered. The agents had lost the signal. Victor ordered me to open the hidden passage. He knew the evidence was somewhere behind the fireplace, but not exactly where. I led him into the basement while Rachel stumbled behind us. At the passage entrance, I pulled the panel aside. Victor forced me inside first. I walked slowly, counting the steps. Daniel had once shown me an old emergency lever connected to the passage door. It had not been used in decades, but I had oiled it while hiding the documents. When Victor crossed the 12th floorboard, I kicked the lever. The steel door slammed between us. Victor fired. The bullet struck the door inches from my head. Rachel remained trapped on his side. "Open it," she screamed. I ran toward the cabinet, climbed an old service ladder, and emerged through a hatch behind the detached garage. Victor would find another exit in minutes. The agent's van was gone. Then I saw flames inside the house. Victor had set the basement on fire. I ran toward the road, shouting for help. A dark vehicle blocked the driveway. Paul Grayson stepped out. The real estate agent was holding a gun. "Get in," he said. That was when I understood the final twist. Victor was not the leader. Paul was. 5. Justice Ed Osnauf. RG Paul forced me into the back seat of his car while smoke rolled from the basement windows. He had spent years hiding behind contracts and false companies. Mountain Renewal Holdings belonged to him. Victor moved the money. Rachel manipulated Daniel, but Paul designed the entire operation. The Hale family was always careless, he said as he drove. Your father almost exposed them. Daniel nearly made the same mistake. You killed my father. I solved a business problem. His calmness frightened me more than Victor's anger. Paul drove toward the mountain road where Daniel had died. He planned to put me inside the burned remains of another car and make my death look like suicide caused by grief. He did not know about the evidence in Ellen's shed. He did not know Marcus had copies of Daniel's recordings. Most importantly, he did not know that I still had the second memory card beneath the lining of my purse. I needed to stay alive long enough for someone to find me. What happened to Rachel? I asked. If she escapes the fire, Victor will handle her. She has Daniel's ring. Paul looked at me in the mirror. What is inside it? Evidence against you. He slowed the car. Where is it? Still in the house. Paul turned around. That decision saved my life. Fire engines were approaching by the time we reached my road. Paul pulled into an abandoned service lane and ordered me out. Through the trees, I saw Marcus's car near the house. The agents had returned after losing my signal. Paul pressed the gun against my side and led me through the woods. You are going to walk inside? He whispered. You are going to bring me the ring. And then? Then I might let you disappear. We both knew it was a lie. Near the garden shed, I deliberately stumbled. My purse fell open, and the memory card slipped into the grass. Paul did not notice. I kicked it beneath the shed door. Ellen's security camera pointed directly at us. Paul pulled me up and dragged me toward the house. Firefighters had contained the basement fire. Victor was on the lawn in handcuffs. Rachel sat inside an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket. When she saw Paul holding me among the trees, her face went pale. She began shouting, but the distance swallowed her words. Paul pushed the gun harder against me. Smile and keep walking. A Marcus turned in our direction. I smiled. Then I said loudly, the mountain gets cold after midnight. Marcus reached for his weapon. Paul fired. The bullet struck my shoulder and spun me to the ground. Agents rushed from behind the fire trucks. Paul ran toward the woods, but Rachel stepped from the ambulance and blocked his path. For one strange second, the two of them faced each other. Paul raised his gun. Rachel pulled Daniel's ring from her neck and threw it into the burning remains of the basement window. Paul turned toward it. That moment of distraction was enough. Marcus tackled him before he could fire again. I remember the cold grass against my cheek. I remember Rachel kneeling beside me and pressing a towel against my shoulder. "I am sorry," she kept saying. I wanted to believe her. Part of me always would. But love could not erase what she had done. "Tell them everything," I whispered. "That is the only thing you can still give me." Rachel did. Over the next 6 months, the truth came out piece by piece. Firefighters recovered Daniel's ring. The memory chip inside it contained financial records, recorded calls, and a video showing Victor beneath Daniel's car on the afternoon before the crash. The recording from my house captured Rachel and Victor blaming each other. Ellen's camera showed Paul holding me at gunpoint. The memory card beneath her shed contained Daniel's original video. Paul was convicted of conspiracy, kidnapping, attempted murder, financial fraud, and involvement in my father's death. He received life in federal prison. Victor accepted a plea agreement only after Paul tried to blame everything on him. He received 42 years. Rachel pleaded guilty to conspiracy, fraud, evidence tampering, and manslaughter. She testified against the others and received 18 years. Some people told me that 18 years was not enough. Others said I should forgive her because she was my sister. They did not understand that forgiveness and trust are different things. I forgave Rachel because I did not want to carry her darkness inside me. But I never asked the court to reduce her sentence. Justice was not revenge born from anger. Justice was making sure she could never sell another person's life for her own comfort. Daniel's company had been nearly destroyed by the stolen money. I sold my share to the employees for $1 and created a fund in Daniel's name. It helped workers recover the retirement savings that Paul's network had stolen. I kept the house. Not because Daniel told me to, and not because it was worth money. I kept it because the truth had survived inside its walls when almost everyone else tried to bury it. For a while, every quiet room reminded me of what I had lost. I would wake before dawn and expect to hear Daniel making coffee downstairs. Sometimes I caught myself reaching for my phone to call him. Healing did not arrive like a door opening. It came in small moments. The first night I slept without checking the locks. The first morning I laughed without feeling guilty. The first Sunday, I cooked Daniel's favorite breakfast and remembered him with gratitude instead of pain. Those moments taught me that surviving was not one brave decision. It was a choice I made again every day. The passage beneath the fireplace was sealed after the trial. Before the workers closed it, I placed Daniel's first note inside a small wooden box. I added a photograph of my father and a letter of my own. My letter said that both men had tried to protect the people they loved. Both had been betrayed, but neither had been forgotten. 1 year after Daniel's death, I drove to the mountain road for the first time. Marcus came with me, though he stayed near the car while I walked to the edge. I carried Daniel's repaired wedding ring in my hand. For months, I had wondered if I missed some warning. I blamed myself for trusting Rachel, for failing to see Victor's lies, and for not knowing Daniel was afraid. Standing there, I finally understood that shame belonged to the people who had chosen greed. It did not belong to me. I slipped Daniel's ring onto a chain and placed it around my neck. "You were right," I said into the wind. The truth was inside the house. But Daniel had hidden something more important than evidence. He had left me a path back to myself. I returned home before sunset. Light poured through the repaired living room windows. The fireplace had been cleaned, but one brick remained darker than all the others. I touched it and remembered the frightened woman who had found a key beneath a desk. That woman believed revenge meant making her enemies suffer. I knew better now. The greatest revenge was surviving what they planned for me. Speaking the truth they tried to burn, and building a life from everything they failed to steal. They buried my husband, betrayed my family, and tried to silence me. But in the end, I was the one who told the story.